and there's a big one here. Around goes Bubba, Busch is in it as well. There's Bowman. Bowman's in the wall. Stenhouse is in there. So too Cindric. And Zane Smith.
Bubba Wallace stood in the middle of Daytona, and the track turned into a storm no one expected. In just 2 days, the roar of engines became whispers of blame. What looked like a race gone wrong grew into something louder behind closed doors. A team once strong now faces cracks, and the noise inside 23XI Racing has only just begun. It's not common in NASCAR to see a team owner call out his own drivers so openly, but that's exactly what happened after a huge crash at the regular season finale in Daytona. Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace, who both helped run 23XI Racing, were right in the middle of it. The crash was dramatic, and the problems afterward have only gotten bigger. Hamlin didn't hold back when he talked about the crash on his Actions Detrimental podcast. He said he saw Wallace push down into 2 cars that were already there. Hamlin said it looked like there just wasn't any space. He didn't know what Wallace's spotter was saying at the time, but in Hamlin's view, Wallace made a move that caused the wreck. He said Wallace wrecked himself and took others with him.
It looked like to me that Bubba just squeezed those 2 guys below him down.
Hamlin didn't think Larson pushed Wallace. He said Wallace just wasn't clear to make the move. Wallace, on the other hand, took the blame and called it a bad situation. He said things were going too well in Stage 1, and something was bound to go wrong. Now he's focused on Darlington and the playoffs. Hamlin blamed Wallace for the crash, but Wallace said it was just a bad racing moment. Wallace's spotter, Freddie Kraft, thought Kyle Larson pushed Wallace into a tough spot. He said Larson tried to move into the middle and made things tight. This shows how crashes can come from fast choices, quick words on the radio, and very little room on the track.
I don't know what Freddie was calling. Maybe he was saying 3 wide top or not. I'm not sure. But he just squeezed on down there and there was no room.
The crash itself was massive, what every NASCAR fan dreads, often referred to as the big one. Around a dozen cars were involved, including Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, and 23XI teammate Riley Herbst. It started with Wallace, Logano, and Busch tangling before quickly morphing into a field-wide carnage. If you followed NASCAR for any length of time, you know these multi-car pileups don't happen in a vacuum. They're the result of trust, timing, and communication. Hamlin's bold statement framed Wallace's move as the turning point, but others see opportunity for drawing different conclusions. Let's break this down with simple clarity. Hamlin said Wallace made a move that could have been avoided. There wasn't enough space, and Wallace forced it. He didn't think Larson caused it. Wallace said sorry for the crash. He took the blame, but also said the race was wild and hard to control. Freddie Kraft said Larson pushed Wallace into a tight spot. On the surface, it looked like just a crash, but deeper it was about trust, blame, and emotions. Hamlin did something rare. He openly blamed his own driver. Wallace stayed calm, speaking about the race speed, but underneath, there was regret and a drive to move on. Freddie Kraft's comments open another door entirely. If Larson did funnel Wallace into that ill-fated spot, that's a force of its own. The wreck was inevitable once the pack got tight. Even unforced moves became impossible to avoid. Bubba Wallace's spotter, Freddie Kraft, seemed to think the accident was Kyle Larson's fault. 5 just tried to fucking force middle there, or something to that effect. Going forward, all eyes shift to how 23XI Racing will operate under this new strain. Will Hamlin and Wallace sit down, sort this out privately, and regroup for Darlington? Wallace said he's locked in and is ready to focus on the playoff push, but the narrative is in the headlines now. Will fans redirect blame? Will the team realign more cautiously? How will Larson react on and off the track? For now, fallout is inevitable, with or without leaks or public commentaries. The roar of engines fills the night air at Daytona. It's the regular season finale for the NASCAR Cup Series, and all eyes are on the high-stakes 23XI Racing team. They brought 2 heavy hitters, Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace. A moment of split-second decision-making changes everything in an instant. It happens over just a few heartbeats. Wallace threads the needle. He risks it. He squeezes between 2 cars that are already there. TV commentators don't even have time to say a full sentence before the field explodes into chaos. About a dozen cars are caught. But the wreck is massive. Among them are Hamlin and his teammate Riley Herbst. The silence that follows feels like disaster. And then the podcast drops. Hamlin's voice cuts through the shock. He doesn't mince words. He says it looked to him like Wallace just squeezed those two guys below him down. His tone isn't measured. It's blunt. He says he's not sure what spotter Freddie Kraft was calling, maybe 3 wide top or not, but he sees Wallace forced it, and there was no room. He doesn't hold back. He says Wallace wrecked himself. He also wrecked others. As a fan, it's wild to hear, because drivers might throw shade at each other after crashes. But this was different. Hamlin wasn't just a fellow driver. He's co-owner of the team. In NASCAR, that's the closest thing to family. To hear Hamlin say that Wallace was not clear, it hits like a fastball. Hamlin gets asked if Wallace was shoved by Kyle Larson before the crash. Larson plunges into every pack. He's a force. But Hamlin says, no, he doesn't see that. Larson was already tight. He doesn't think Larson shoved him. That's just the 23rd not clear, Hamlin says.
But, again, Larson was just trying to keep his line moving and give whoever was in front of him a shot.
Now let's rewind to Wallace. He doesn't grab the microphone and fight back with equal force. He sits down, says he hates what happened, and takes the blame. He calls it a crap deal, wrapped up in chaos. He says things have been going too well for him in Stage 1, and maybe something bad was bound to happen. He pivots his focus to Darlington, playoffs moving forward. Spotter Freddie Kraft said Larson pushed Wallace into the middle, adding pressure. Maybe Wallace was boxed in with no way out. At 190 miles per hour, cars ran 3 wide, radios buzzing, trust hanging by a thread. Wallace went for space that wasn't there, and the field came crashing down. Before the crash, teams had plans and moves ready. Then it all went wrong. Cars hit, feelings ran high, and blame started flying. Fans loved the drama. Hamlin's words split fans. Some back him, others defend Wallace. This is bigger than one crash. It's about teamwork under pressure. Wallace stayed calm and took the blame. That shows maturity, but it also leaves him open. Even if Hamlin apologizes later, the public hit may leave a lasting mark. And then we've got Larson, off-screen, off-camera, but thrust into the picture. Was he a passive bystander or an active trigger? Kraft's suggestion that Larson forced space can't be ignored. The wreck wasn't a solo act. Next, 2311 Racing has to deal with big pressure. People are watching how Wallace and Hamlin handle this. Can they fix things before the playoffs? Will Wallace do well at Darlington? This crash wasn't just about racing, it was also about team trouble and strong emotions. As the playoffs get closer, we'll see if this team can stick together or fall apart.